Welcome back, guys, to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I'm fortunate to have Richard O'Brien and Nellie Lakshman. Richard is the founder of Hoamsy, and Nellie is a founding member and works on the marketing and operations strategy. Uh, Hoamsy is a platform that helps people find the right apartment, the right roommate, and guide you through the overall stage of moving. Richard and Nellie, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Arnav. Yeah, nice to be here.
Awesome. So let's go back a little bit. Rich, if you want to just talk about a little bit about your background, and before Homesy and things of that nature.
Sure. Yeah. So for me personally, I guess let's see how far to go back. I grew up in New England.
Yeah.
And then I ended up moving for college around New England for the entire college and young professional portion of my life. And when I was young, I also my family, my father never really was an independent consultant, so he never really went down that path of I'm going to have a career at one company for 40 years and this is what I'm going to do. He was always bouncing around between companies, doing completely different projects. And so being exposed to that sort of, role model and upbringing always had me thinking when I was especially going through undergrad and I was in that discovery phase of my life where I was like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And I, as many people I'm sure found that I didn't have one answer. And I kept thinking that, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I always found that I wanted to the thing I ended up finding out in the end is I really wanted to define my own impact. And what that meant for me was I got to not only set my direction, but also understand what that direction and what I was doing tangibly affected in other people's lives. And so that inspired me coming out of my undergrad to create my first startup while I was also doing some consulting. So I did some consulting to make some money and pay the bills. And then I also, on the side, started my own tech startup. And it was a social media startup with my best friend, where we actually made some good progress. We built the app, we launched it, got about 1,000 users, but we just didn't have any idea what we were doing on the business end of things or anything like that. I had built the entire technology myself also. And so it was an exercise in self-confidence, I would say, as well, because learning that I think when everyone starts out to build something, they're always a little bit unsure if they're good enough or their product is good enough or anything like that. So when that business ended up wrapping up, I decided I needed to figure out exactly how to do this process because I knew from my first experience that I loved it. And from there, I decided to apply to Babson. And that's when I started Hoamsy and with Nellie.
Awesome. That mindset that you talk about, Rich, can you go a little bit more into it? What draws you to entrepreneurship? Is it you control your own narrative, or you always liked being independent, something else? Because at a young age, that's pretty unique. I don't think, a lot of college students have that kind of mindset. And obviously you talked about your father's impact on your life, but that's a unique mindset to have.
I think for me, it's actually really funny because I don't think I identified it first. I think someone else identified it in me before I even knew it was, and it was a complete stranger. And it was a couple months before my graduating my undergrad, and I had been again in this time of exploration where I knew I wanted to just explore and constantly be like creating new things. I was starting clubs. I was building little side projects and like a lot of other people I know have. And I went to a graduation party with a lot of my closest friends. and one of their dads was there, and uh, they were like, and when he saw me, he was like, "Oh, you're Richard," and I was like, "Yeah, like that's me." He's like, "Oh, I've heard a lot about you. You're gonna start a business one day." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Trust me, you're gonna start a business one day." And I was like, "Okay, good to know." And then I kind of moved on with my life, and um, I guess that's the first time I ever had it exposed to me. Like that was the kind of mindset I was going towards. For me, it's always been about, like you mentioned, I definitely want to define my own impact. I definitely want to. Um, I want to not only. So I'm very passionate or enthusiastic about the idea that it's about defining your impact that matters, and that's the thing I love. I don't necessarily love like um, the like one thing that's happening at the time. Like I'm not obsessed with finding people an apartment, although I think it's an extremely difficult process and I think it's amazing. I'm obsessed with the impact of like getting people that better part of their life, and making that part of their life easier. So that's the part that I've fallen in love with. And so for me, it's always been about defining your own impact. And yes, I've been independent and had these other qualities that have definitely added up to it. But for me, that's the part I always fell in love with, I would say.
That's awesome. Nelly, do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So I think my journey is definitely been a little different from Richard's in the sense that, so being originally from India, I did go the path of working in a big company straight out of college. I worked in two big companies for about 2 years. And while it was rewarding in the sense that it helped with understanding how to work in a team and what you're good at, really what it made me realize is that I'm a really like creative person. I like to be able to change things for the better. I like to be able to innovate things and not continue doing kind of the same process every day. And I realized there's only so much you can do these things in a large company. And that really led me to want to pursue something on my own. And so that's when I decided, okay, I want to run a small business. And I did that with my mom. It was a beauty salon, and I really just built it from scratch and even did like door-to-door sales where I actually went out and be like, hey, this is my salon, come to it. And then it was really rewarding to see that people actually showed up and they liked what we had built. But it also led to the realization of I had so much more to learn in terms of how do you do this in the long run? How do you continue getting new people to come and like sign up to your idea and like it? And that led me to apply to Babson. And I really came into Babson with the aim of wanting to work on an idea with someone else because I felt like that's how I could add the most impact. So when I met Richard and I heard about his idea, I realized that I had personally been affected by the lack of guidance when it comes to just finding an apartment and finding a roommate. And it was really just exaggerated by the fact that I was coming from a different country. There was absolutely no guidance that I got. And I ended up having a really bad experience overall with moving here and finding an apartment and a roommate. So it was definitely an idea I felt like I could relate to, and that piqued my interest. So I've really been there from the beginning when we were at idea stage and we were figuring out who our customer is, how we should be building this technology that will help people, right up to now when we're full-fledged. We have customers coming in, we're converting them, we're giving them a good experience. So it's there's been a lot of learning for sure, and I feel like what we're trying to do is unique. Um, and with every customer I talk to, I can see how much they're struggling and how much there's a need to give someone a way to actually like be guided to an apartment or a roommate that helps them find what they need when they move to Boston, especially for internationals like me. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's as soon as I heard what your company does, it was I was like, yeah, why doesn't this exist? Uh Rich, can you talk a little bit about, you know, how you came up with this idea, or, you know, did you come to Babson with multiple ideas, and then, you know, how did you end up, you know, choosing this, if that was the case?
I think that, yeah, I think for overall, I think that one really interesting thing about how we came up with the idea, and I think Nelly kind of talked about it a little bit, is I love the process of trying to figure out what people like. Like it's like a puzzle that you're trying to solve, trying to figure out how people will like this, and how you do that. You can go about it in like a million different ways, and no way is really the right way. And you still have to end up at this destination of something that people love. And so our philosophy for trying to figure out how people will like Hoamsy has always been to let them guide us. And we've done this in a lot of different ways. You know, before we even launched the Hoamsy MVP, we had already launched 4 prototypes of different ideas and iterations. When I came into Babson, like you asked, I didn't have the idea for Hoamsy. I only knew that I had a lot of difficulty moving, and that wouldn't it be nice if, for me, the solutions out there that existed didn't work. They were either too expensive, or they provided me with like a million options that I just didn't have the context or the knowledge to filter through. And so I was like, I need something that will fill this gap in my knowledge, but won't cost me thousands of dollars, like paying for a broker or something. So when I came into Babson, I had no idea what the problem physically, or even how to solve the problem. And so what we did is I went through, like I mentioned, 4 different iterations of prototypes. We talked with hundreds of customers. Nelly mentioned that when she jumped on board with Hoamsy is when we got through the summer venture program. And during that summer, what we did is we had office space in Boston. And what we would do is after the end of every workday, we would go out into Boston and just go and talk to, I think it's probably hundreds of people overall by the end of it, about problems they had with moving. And then we would even like toss a solution out. We'd be like, hey, like, do you think if we did this, would you sign up for this? Is this something you'd want? And they'd be like, yeah, or they'd be like, maybe. And we were just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what would stick. And I remember we always used to like go to this place by the train station because it was like right next to our way home. And there was like this big gathering of young professionals. And we were like, wow, the perfect, the perfect desk. And so we did that. And then as we went along, we've kept doing that process of talking to our people and figuring out exactly what they want. So as we've launched different features, we do personal one-to-one outreach to our customers and talk to, you know, at least a dozen of them every single day in order to understand, is this helping you? How can this help you better? And what can we do in order to solve that puzzle like I was talking about? How can we make this thing that you love, and how can we make this thing that actually benefits and impacts your life? And so it's definitely not like a one-time fix. It's a process we've gone through again and again and again. But I love it. I think it's fun. I think it's really interesting.
Just going back a little bit with the idea, like, so when you thought of the idea, did you then go and talk to 100 people and see if they understood the problem? Like, what was your mindset in deciding, you know, to go from the idea stage to now I'm going to make a prototype?
Well, I think that I would say that I wouldn't say we thought of the solution. I would say people told us the solution. So we knew the problem. We knew that people were having difficulty moving, and there were problems in terms of cost, ambiguity, transparency, and much more. And we would literally just go out and ask people. And our philosophy, and I think that this is something I've encountered a lot, is people, they want to wait till they have the right idea before they're going to build the thing. They're like, oh, like the perfect idea is going to come up. I'm going to build this thing and it's going to be amazing. And that's just not a realistic way to go about it. The way that, and I learned that from my first venture, which is what we tried to do. We tried to find the perfect idea. We tried to build the perfect idea. And we ended up learning that the perfect idea was only perfect for the limited amount of people we'd talked to already. And we didn't know how to take that perfect idea and grow it. And it was a lot of time invested for a very mediocre result. And so for this one, what we decided was, we're not going to try to build the perfect idea. We're going to try to build something and then we're going to take that thing and keep building it and changing it until we get to the right idea. And so, and that's evident in Hoamsy, even in the past couple months, where we even pivoted the apartment side of our business to serve a different customer segment, because we saw that one customer segment that we'd originally thought and talked to a lot was gonna love this part of the product, and it turned out that that was not actually the case, and we had to go and shift it again in order to fit a new customer segment. So I would say that we never thought about the idea and had it, right?
Yeah, it's definitely been based on what people have said they need, and also just talking to people directly, like he said, has told us that, okay, like we're seeing a lot of demand for this. Is like, for example, someone has a room open and they need to fill it. There are so many people out there who need that. And that was the kind of the pivot for us to realize, especially during COVID, that a lot of people have moved out of their current apartments in Boston and moved back home. And that's left a lot of people with a lease and no one to help them with that and share it with. So it was very interesting. It was really because we spoke to people that we realized that's how we realized, okay, this is the need right now in the market.
I think that one last thing too is that something that we've learned is that you need to be okay with tearing down what you've built. And so I mean, if you've seen Hoamsy, if you could have seen Hoamsy on day one and you could see Hoamsy today, you would see that every single part of Hoamsy that we built has been torn down at least once and rebuilt. And this has led us to the philosophy of just build it fast, build it dirty, and get it out there. And if the people like it, they'll tell you how to make it right. And if people don't like it, tear it down, try again.
Can you talk a little bit more about that pivoting? Maybe what was it originally, maybe, and then how has it evolved a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, so I think for us originally, we felt that students would be our focus because we did see coming in, the first people who told us that this was a problem they were facing were our peers who were absent. So we felt like we could just work with schools, partner with them, and get their new cohort to come up and sign up and use Hoamsy to find who they need, especially people coming, because like for a college like Babson, you have people from all over the world, and we felt like we could really cater to them. And our pivot really was when COVID hit. We realized so many people weren't going to move to Boston because they weren't sure. Visa offices closed down. They weren't sure if it was going to be online or hybrid or completely just for, like, a lot of them deferred their admissions. So we continued reaching out to people at these different colleges to see if they were coming, and we realized so many of them deferred it because it just didn't make sense for them to come right now, which is understandable. And that led to our pivot. That's when we reached out to others who are actually looking for apartments and looking for roommates, and realized young professionals right now, some of them were staying in Boston while some of them decided to move back because college was remote or work was remote and they could just live at home, which is more economical because they couldn't go out in anyway. And that's when we pivoted to building a feature where you could post your place and find a roommate to take over a lease or to be your new roommate for the next year's lease. So shifting our focus from students who will continue to be our focus, just that they're moving a little later, to people right now who have a room open was our pivot. And having a product that you could change quickly was really, it helped. It was good that we didn't have something that would take ages to change and could be changed quickly, for sure.
No, that's awesome that you guys had a openness to change based on what the consumer was saying. I just realized, for people out there that don't know what Hoamsy is, can you guys, one of you, just go through, the process of what Hoamsy offers and how they can use it?
Sure. Hoamsy is a platform that's designed around full process facilitation and curation. And so basically what that means is we find you the right roommate, right apartment, and then we facilitate every other part of your journey. And that's the ultimate vision of Hoamsy. So all you got to do to use Hoamsy is you just go to hoamsy.com. You sign up if you're looking to fill an open room, looking to rent an apartment, looking to list your open room or your place, you can do that. It's very easy. You get guided through it in about 3 or 4 steps. And then from there, we match you. Let's say you are looking for an open room. We'll match you to people and their places with open rooms that fit your budget, your lifestyle. Say you have pets, say you like to live in a really clean area, say, you like to live in a very quiet area, whatever it may be. You get matched to the options that fit you best, and then you can message them and contact them directly and schedule tourings, viewings, whatever else works. And in the future, we're going to further build out to facilitate things like the logistics of moving. So say when you sign that lease and you're going to go move in with your new roommate, that's the perfect fit. You're going to, we'll help you, rent a U-Haul and coordinate the timing of day of that. Help you get your new furniture when you get there. Things like this.
Do you even have, because I haven't heard of anything like this, do you even have competitors? Because it's a very good idea. I think that a lot of people just, post on Facebook group, but I mean, they don't know, they'll get responses, but they don't get to really meet. I think that the fit part of it is such an important thing, because you're signing a lease for a year for the most part. And, a lot of people just base it off of one Facebook post, like a year-long's financial decision and like livelihood decision. Obviously they'll probably message, but can you, I don't think there are any services like this, correct?
I mean, there aren't services. So Hoamsy is super unique. Yes, definitely in the fit part, because just like you said, even if you're dating someone, you're going to wait to move in with them. It's not like a small or light decision. And so, yeah, the fit part is extremely unique. And we really use that to differentiate from other services like, I'm not going to, apartments.com, roommates.com, things like this, where you're going to get like a million options, but they don't have any pertinence to what is best for you. So it'd be like if you like search through Google and it just gave you every option out there, not like the top ones. But additionally, there's the full process element. So before, if you wanted a roommate, right, you would go and post that on a Facebook group for roommates. And then if you wanted to go and find an apartment with that roommate, you'd go and look on a different platform for that. And then if you wanted to schedule that move, you'd go to U-Haul's website or whatever. And so having that all in one place and having that all coordinated with you, so you can see like, oh, well, this roommate fits me, and this roommate's also looking at this apartment that I like too. Having that all in one place really makes it unique. But there are competitors at every different step, right? So for apartments, there's a million competitors. Zillow, apartments.com, etc. For roommates, there's roommates.com, Roomie, all these other things. So there are competitors every step of the way, is what I would say.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, actually, he touched upon a great point where like you don't have one place for everything. Like recently, we just had someone who found a roommate, and then she was actually moving to a new place because she didn't like the place she had, and then she needed to list her apartment. So not only did she get to like find a place for herself, she could then list the apartment she was moving out from all in one place, which I feel like is so hard to do anywhere else. You'd have to post again on like a Facebook group, for example, and figure out, okay, now not only am I done looking for a roommate, I'm trying to find someone for mine, which is really confusing to people who see like millions of posts a day. But I feel like that synergy of not just an apartment or a roommate, but both is definitely something that like is not out there and something that people do need. We've seen the need for it.
You guys both talked about having started ventures prior to coming to Babson, and saying something to the equivalent of not really having the business knowledge to continue with those ventures. Can you talk about how Babson has helped you, and maybe some of the venture programs that you've been a part of, and what did you end up getting out of those programs and things of that nature?
I think that, and maybe I'll start and you can pick it up after, because I'm sure I'll never be able to cover everything. But I think for me, the biggest thing was, so far, entrepreneurship has been a very self-directed process where you're constantly trying to figure out what the next steps are. You're constantly trying to figure out what the ecosystem is that you're surrounded by. Because entrepreneurial, like, people think that entrepreneurs, they just kind of go off by themselves, or they go into their parents' garage, they build their thing, and then, a year later it's Apple or something.
Yeah.
And that's not what happens. So there's a whole ecosystem surrounding entrepreneurship, like accelerators, like, different ways of getting investment and money, and different ways to get a team, like Nelly mentioned, or I'm sure Will mentioned. And for me, the big thing that Babson did was it taught me about the ecosystem that surrounds entrepreneurship, which I was just completely clueless about before, honestly. And then also, because it's so self-directed, it gave me a process to follow in order to be able to set that direction. So if you can't always know the direction you're going, it's good to at least know how to find it. So it basically, it gave me the compass to at least start figuring out where I'm going, and then the destination will always be a mystery, but that's okay.
I think, just to add to that, for me, my big learning was just something Babson says a lot, and it sounds cliche, but it's so true, is just being comfortable with things being ambiguous, which I think it's always going to be, even if you're at idea stage or you've come to business stage, is always going to be questions you don't have the answer to. And I feel like a lot of people, when they start off, they think that, okay, Batson's going to give you that platform to find all those answers. And by the end, you're going to realize that they'll give you, like, there's no better place for resources when it comes to actually finding help when it comes to like building your idea. But there's all, like, you have to get comfortable with the fact that sometimes there's no right answer, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean you stop working on your idea. It doesn't mean that your idea isn't valid. It just means that that's how entrepreneurship works. It's going to take work. It's always going to be stuff you got to figure out no matter where you're at. And you see this in big companies where a new technology comes in and you've got to pivot, you've got to figure out how you're going to compete. So just realizing that that is a reality and it's okay is a big learning. And an example of that for us was, I think in the beginning, we always felt like, oh, we're not there yet, so I don't know if we need a team because we're still trying to figure it out. But over the summer, for me, it just felt like I see all these people who don't have jobs anymore, but need the experience, especially college students. And I was just like, hey, guess what? I posted a posting on AngelList, and I didn't even consult with Richard about that. I just did it because I felt like, what better time where people need that help as well as we need that help? Why not make it work for both sides and actually add value? Because people are looking for that experience right now. We could be the people to help them. So we did it, and it's been really like amazing. It's changed how we worked as a business because we've had interns come in over the summer who significantly impacted our tech, which has been something that has always been longer because, building tech is definitely a lot harder than marketing a business. So seeing that actually like topple and have the tech go a lot quicker has been incredible. And we've continued getting people on our team since then who continue to add value by adding that structure and impacting our business like we've never seen before. So I feel like that risk that we took and didn't really think if we were in the perfect position is something like you have to continue doing and not worry about, because it's incredible to see the number of people who want to actually like come on board and help you with your idea if you just give them a chance.
Yeah.
I think that the comfort and ambiguity thing is like the hardest part of it.
For sure.
But I think I wouldn't even call it comfort. It's like tolerance of ambiguity.
Yeah. So there's probably someone out there that's listening who's at an idea stage or something like that. What would you say in the last couple years to them about maybe some lessons you learned or pieces of advice, whether it's with hiring or whether it's with, obviously you've given some already, but does anything stand out so far, after, like a year and a half doing it?
If someone's at the starting stages in the company, like what I'd
Yeah.
tell them.
Yeah.
I was told this motto by an entrepreneur a while ago, and I really like it. And that if you're young, it's too risky not to take risk. And if you just play it safe, you're gonna lose out more than you would have if you risked it and lost, and failed anyways. Because at least you'll be able to take those lessons and take that momentum into whatever the next thing it is you do. If you just kind of play it safe, you'll never have had that experience, learn those lessons. So my first and the biggest thing I even personally did, and I see with other people, is that you need to just go and start building the thing, just go and start doing the thing. There's always a way, even if it's like you want to go do something extremely complex, you want to go build an AI or whatever it is, there's always ways to test it out and start getting that consumer feedback, start getting that refinement of the product, whether it be like putting up a website that describes it and lets people subscribe to the future service or whatever, just to see people's interest. Like there's always low tech ways to even if it's the most high tech thing, to test out the product and start getting that traction. And like my biggest thing is you just have to start doing that. Stop waiting for the right idea. Stop waiting for everyone to say they love it and expect negative feedback. Because I mean I had people when I was in the early stages of Hoamsy tell me to my face that it was a terrible idea and no one would want it and I should never stop wasting my time. And the thing that kept me going was that, one, I had this progress behind me and this momentum behind me already, and two, I was talking to other people actively that were saying, no, this is something that we would use. And so it's you got to start doing it. That's what I would say.
Nelly, I didn't ask you this, but obviously at some point, I don't know how you two met, but at some point Rich gave you the idea. What was it? I mean, obviously you had some interest in entrepreneurship. What do you think drew you to join the team?
Sure. That's actually a really good question, because I feel like it's so important, especially if it's not your idea, to think about why you're buying into someone else's idea. Because when you're at that stage, as a person who's joining, you obviously want to get enough value out of buying into someone else's idea, but also make sure you're like giving enough to the other person. So for me, I'd say it wasn't the idea itself, although I did relate to it personally. What drew me to it is seeing how dedicated Richard was to pursuing the idea, that I felt that even if this is at idea stage right now, I knew he would continue to push towards this and make it some sort of a business before he gave up on it, which I think that is key. Because a lot of people, like everyone has a lot of ideas, very few of them have that risk mindset to be able to actually go and work on it enough to make it, to see if it's actually worth pursuing before they give up on it. So I felt like actually actively seeing him during school, focusing on it every day after class and any other free time he had, he would focus on Hoamsy. So I felt like if I was a part of that, I know I'm going to get value out of it, even if it's only learning, because he continues to focus on it every day, no matter what, no matter how many people, like he says it's not a good idea. He continued talking to more people before he just gave up on it. So I feel like if you're looking to buy into someone else's idea, it's important to find someone who you can see is willing to stick to one idea and is willing to take that risk, because you don't want to be disappointed and you don't want the other person to be someone who feels like you came on and then you left because it wasn't the right fit. So I think it comes down again to the right fit, where you need to find someone who you, if you want, if for me, for example, I know I'm not the type who can do it myself, because I think it takes a lot to be able to come up with an idea and pursue it, especially if it's a tech product. I don't even have the knowledge to be able to do that myself. So I tell people that even if you don't think you can do it yourself, try and find someone who can, who will still give you that platform to be an entrepreneur in your own way.
Yeah. How have you guys managed your personal relationship and your business relationship? I think often you hear about these startups and you know relationships can sour, and then one partner has to buy out the other, and things of that nature. Um, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think that overall we've tried to, I think at the beginning we tried to put up like a firewall between the two. And I don't think that was actually super effective. I don't think that actually worked for us. Um, I think the whole separation of church and state thing, um, for some, because business conversations when we were doing it, for most of the day would inevitably bleed into personal conversations. We'd be talking about what movie is cool out right now, and then we'd be talking about how, we can attract more customers the same way the movie does or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So for us, that didn't work. For us, it was all about understanding that if there's a conflict as it relates to the business, it was always about making sure we addressed it head on, making sure we had that open channel of communication, and we disagree on a lot of things a lot of times, and there's a mutual understanding that Nelly can check me on things and I can check Nelly on things, and that it's not a reflection of each other personally. It's just a reflection of what we think is best for the company, what we think is best for the team and the business going forward. And so for us, it's been about, not necessarily maintaining a firewall between the two, but about understanding the difference in the interactions we have, and understanding that if there's criticism or commentary or whatever, it's all about that vision of how do we get to where we want to go.
And I think just to add to that, it's an interesting thing you brought up, because we had Shreya, who was a peer at Babson, who really was one of the first people who came on. And she was a friend first before she came on to Hoamsy. And what we've always made it a point to do is, like, at that point, she did come on, her priorities changed, she did leave, but now she's actually come back onto the team. So we've continued, we don't sour relationships just because we understand I think something Richard brings up a lot is how the worst thing about entrepreneurship is, like, life gets in the way, people's lives tend to get in the way. So just understanding that, and like being open with the other person and understanding their perspective and respecting that their priorities change is so important, because of that she came back on. She's loving being back here, seeing all of our progress and continuing adding value, and we were really happy to have her back on. So I think keeping those relationships clear and open and understanding that sometimes priorities change is so important, because you never know who's going to come back.
Yeah. No, you guys have a good headspace on that. I guess for you, and I don't know if you're even able to do this, but do you have moments of feeling like reward, like like happiness out of I mean, obviously you're working so hard, and there's still stuff that you want to get to, but are you able to sit back and reflect at all while you're in the midst of working so hard?
I think the Nelly, that's probably more Nelly's domain than mine, honestly. For me, I'm very kind of forward focused. I'm always like, how can we do the next thing? How, what's the next problem we're going to face? What's the next challenge we're headed? And how do we get to where we're trying to go? And I think Nelly, I mean, really specifically, Nelly, for example, the other day sent on our team Slack, like, some messages she'd gotten from a user who ended up finding their apartment through Hoamsy and was grateful. And so, like, I think having that direct interaction with our customers has been really, really great for that aspect of it. And Nelly definitely does a better job of that than me. For me, like, I maybe get excited for a minute if I see, like, oh, we passed so many users, then I'm like, woo, but I don't necessarily, and we try to build stuff in, like, we try to have it in our team meeting every week. We try to discuss the different milestones we've hit and where we're going. And so we have tried to structure it a bit, but I would say that's more Nelly's domain.
Yeah, I think it's important, like in a startup, to focus on the small wins as well, because I always make it a point to talk about, look at how far we've come, even from 3 months ago. It's monumental progress. Things we didn't think we would be doing, we're doing right now. And we even try and post on our Instagram about like user feedback, because I feel like even one person saying they're loving what they're experiencing is a win for us. And it's basically someone saying everything you're doing makes sense and we like it. And I feel like no matter what happens in the future, you've got to celebrate those small wins, because something you built from scratch is working for someone else you've never met before, which I think is incredible. And it's important to keep that perspective for sure.
I think that's why it's good to have the team overall. Like the different, we have a very diverse team. And like, I think that's one of the benefits, is that even like for someone like me who might get caught up in like the what's next, it's good to have the other people who can emphasize the what's happening now.
On the flip side, Ed, I know this is a tough question, but what are the hard parts? What are the, what are some of the annoying parts or things of that nature where you have to kind of check yourself and not get too low?
I think entrepreneurship inherently is I've heard, you've always heard that it's inherently a lonely task, right? And there's always people talk about how the highs of entrepreneurship are super high and the lows are super low. And so for me personally, the biggest thing has always been having that support system of the team. And so, I can always rely on being able to talk to Nelly about if I'm having a day where I'm like, Nelly's Hoamsy's gonna fail and I don't know what's going on, So
Yeah.
Everyone has those days,
Yep.
for sure. But for me, it's always been about having that support system, whether it be Nelly or other members of the team, to be able to bounce these questions off of, like, hey, what do you think about our strategy right now? Do you actually think like this is working, or do you think we should switch something up? And I think it's also been about approaching it constructively, because I think it's really easy to, if you're having a challenge, to go into a tailspin. Like, I know in the beginning of summer, we were having a real challenge with getting users, like in a growing fashion, because we were just getting kind of like a marginal amount of users and we were getting some positive feedback for them. But okay, how do we scale this up and really start getting more users? And I know for me, like, that was a big challenge that was weighing on me, because if you have people like something but no one uses it, who cares? And so being able to, instead of go into a negative mindset of like, no one's using our product, and going into a positive mindset of, okay, well, how do we solve this product, and framing that to the team and having them as support was really big.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I guess, what do you hope for the future and vision of the company? What would you love to see it be, in 2 years or so forth?
I think our vision of the company is, if you want to talk in terms of scale, it's have it be a national brand where it's in every major city. I really want, I think right now when people say I gotta move, it's a dreaded experience. It's this mountain to climb. And I really wanted to, and I think that used to be the situation where, like, if you're gonna like order a taxi, you'd have to be like, oh God, I have to pay them in cash and like make sure I'm not getting swindled. And this sounds very familiar to the apartment rental process. And so I want it to be something like how Uber's done it now, where it's like you press a button, get your taxi, go to where you're going, and it's a pleasant experience. And so I want ultimately for that to happen, for Hoamsy to facilitate every part of people's move. And it's something that people can look forward to and be excited about, as opposed to dread, have this existential moment over. Anything?
Awesome.
I think, just to add to that, I feel like my vision is, it's like I always tie back into how can you help each person. And like talking to customers, I've just seen the number of people who are frustrated because they don't know what they need, or they don't know how not to go into a scam. The number of people who are like, oh, I'm in this apartment, but I hate it, and I didn't talk about it enough before this, so I didn't know, because especially because they're coming from different countries for school, and they want to make sure they have a place to live before coming here. So I'm hoping Hoamsy can help those people who have absolutely no guidance. And something we've dedicated to doing from the beginning is also have blog posts that we put up that talks about what are the steps for finding an apartment, how should you look for a roommate that fits your needs, what are the conversations you should have. And that's really dedicated to helping people who's moving from just a different state, even if it's not from a different country, because they have absolutely no clue what to look for. And I've been there, and I feel like that's a problem nobody out there is solving. And we want to be able to be there for those people who they're just coming in blind and just taking a gamble on things. So I feel like being that platform, they feel like, oh, you're from a new place, go to Hoamsy because they can help you and they have the resources. I'd like that to be like what people say about us one day.
Yeah, that's an awesome mission. Was there anything else that I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a bit. Anything that you think you want
I mean,
to add?
I'm just interested to talk about. I want to learn a little bit more also about what made you start this podcast, because I know that I learned about this a couple months ago from one of your posts, and I think that it's interesting to hear about why people start things. I know for us it was about helping and defining our impact, but what made you kind of go and follow your dream or whatever? That's the one thing I want to know.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, so first, I guess, obviously, I've been someone who's dealt with mental health issues, right? So I inherently want people to have a space to learn, right? And to be inspired to go after being the best version of themselves, right? And so, for example, with this podcast, there's a lot of people who are at the idea stage who don't know, this year and 8-month journey that you guys have taken. There's a lot of lessons here that they can learn, right? The building of the team, the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. Um, and so for me it's just and then just spreading positivity, right? So if you watch the news every day, you're going to get depressed, but obviously there's a lot of good out there. So um I mean, again, and this fits right in. I think there's so many horror stories, right, of moving and apartments, um and it's a tough process, right? If you're,
Oh yeah.
I had a friend moving cross country. She's a nurse, you know, from Iowa to Massachusetts. She doesn't know anyone here. Like, even if she can meet up with, someone else who is a nurse who might have a similar schedule, or someone else who likes, sports or something, you know what I mean? It just helps with the process. So, um, yeah, so I mean, I think for me, it's definitely been just trying to inspire people to see the good, um, you know, uh, and continue to go after their dreams. Yeah.
That's like a really interesting lesson with starting a business in general. I think that it can be so easy to see the bad as throughout. Like, I know from building Homesy, right? And it's weird because you think that the more progress you get, like uh, the more problems go away. And that's not really the case. You're just a serial problem solver. It's just a new problem replaces it.
Yep.
Oh, I can't build the technology. Oh, I can't get users on the technology. Oh, I can't get the users to accelerate on the technology. I can't get them to succeed, whatever, right? And it can be so easy to focus on the negatives and obsess over them, that sometimes I think it's also valuable to take that little break and think about, what are the, why are you doing this? What are the positives, and how can, what really is your goal? Because I think also with me, especially, I'm super product oriented, come from an engineering background, come from the tech. I love my widgets and my code.
Yeah.
And so it can be super hard to see something and to see your product and see someone not like something in it, right? Because it feels like they don't like something in you. It
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
so personal.
Personal. Yeah.
It's like your baby. But so it can be so hurtful. But then to detach yourself from that and to think, that's just something I'd really encourage people who are building a tech thing, especially. Try to, as much as you can, detach yourself from it and understand that it's not a reflection on you, and understand why you're doing it in the first place.
And to use that as motivation to figure out, as you guys talked about this, to solve the problem, right? If they're not liking it, the chances are somebody else might not be liking it for the same reasons. So now how do we get into their mindset and change that mindset? It's an opportunity to solve.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, but
Yeah.
I hope that people take that away.
For sure.
Awesome. So, Rich and Nelly, I just want to thank you for being on. I want to acknowledge you and the work you're doing. It's not easy, right, to go after your dreams. It's hard. And, as I said, I really love the product. I think uh, pretty much anybody that has moved, I would say, has probably had a horror story of some sort or a negative experience of some sort. And, I think it's a really great product, and I hope everything continues to go well. For people looking to support you guys, can you talk about where they can find Hoamsy, and if you want to give out where they can find you guys personally, feel free to do that as well.
For sure. So Hoamsy is found at hoamsy.com. We're always if you are looking for a roommate, an apartment, a little bit of just help understanding the move. We have a one-on-one chat. So we're here you can shoot any question you want to us. What's the difference between Back Bay and Fenway? We're happy to answer and help you out. So we, like Nelly said, we really want to be that person that's there for you. Regardless of whether you find your apartment or roommate on Hoamsy or not. And if you want to reach me, you can email me at richard@hoamsy.com. So just keeping things nice and simple. Nelly, do you want to go at your email too, or?
I think the email is good, but I'd also say if someone wants to just keep in touch, they can definitely email us and we could add them to our subscription list. We send out newsletters. So again, if they just send us an email at richard@hoamsy.com, we'd love to have more people hear about our product and even give us feedback on what they think. That would be amazing. So that's just the only other thing I would add.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being on.
Awesome. Thank you, Arnaud.
Pleasure.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.